lot of times religion is to blame for those.
No, now that's a different issue, Justin. Come on, don't get out of the kitchen. Stay in the kitchen.
I'm right at the stove.
No, you're not at the stove. Not when you talk about then religion.
I'm starting to
We're talking about a philosophical issue that has nothing to do with Jesus Christ or the Bible.
I said religion. I didn't say Jesus Christ.
It has everything to do with, is there a God or is there no God? If there's no God, Justin, then you define right and wrong, the culture defines right and wrong, the power elite define right and wrong. It's far more reasonable to believe that this rational mind is the gift of a rational creator than to believe that this rational mind is an accident.
No, it doesn't.
You follow that? Come on, guys, think.
Sir, it has to do with us not having to be a nomadic culture and finally learning how to cultivate animals and farm and be able to stay in a place for a certain amount of time so we can raise our families and have more time to think rather than scavenging for food. Men would go off to hunt, women would take care of children, men would come back and spend time with their families, more interactive time with children. Children would grow, become smarter, and become better than their parents. That is what life is about. Being a better example than your parents before you. That is all my parents have ever told me.
Very good.
Have a better life than they ever had.
Good. Now, who defines better?
Who defines better? Social contrast, exactly.
Okay, good.
Man.
So if you happen to grow up in a Nazi home, social contract says Aryans are superior to Jews. That's the social contract. If you happen to be African American at the time of the Dred Scott decision, social contract in America says black folks are 3/5 the value of white folks. You like those social contracts?
No, I don't, because I was raised late. I was raised Catholic, and I never subscribed to that social contract. I never did. I never liked the church because
Come on, guys, think.
It was a very punishing.
If morality is based on the social contract, what do you say if you're a white South African at the time of apartheid? What do you say if you're a Nazi at the time of Adolf Hitler?
Speak against it.
Okay, good. So you don't follow the social contract, do you? What do you follow?
You make your own.
You make your own. How do you make your own? Logic. Okay, and what else?
Reason.
Heart, reason, conscience. You know that to dump on another person because they're a different race is evil. It's disrespectful of that human being. Well, why is a human being valuable? Why is it wrong to be disrespectful? Because that human being is not an accident. That human being has been created by God for a purpose. Because they have purpose, they have meaning. Because they have meaning, they have value. And that value comes from God. You wipe God out of the picture, you're up a creek without a paddle when it comes to explaining why human beings have value.
Survival.
Good try.
They don't have real value.
Thank you. They don't have real value. So this man, you don't have real value, neither does this man. We just create that in our heads.
Why should we base contextual evidence that it presents any different than the contextual evidence off of a Dr. Seuss book or John Steinbeck's Grapes of Wrath? It's just context. We don't know it really happened.
Okay, great question. Sir, I am not asking you to accept the Bible as the Word of God. Okay, so let's get that straight. Okay? I think it's ridiculous for me to say, well, the Bible's the Word of God. There's no way I could show that, so forget that, okay? What I am asking you to accept is the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John as historically reliable.
Okay.
In other words, I am convinced that the evidence is Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are a historical narrative that is reliable. It'll give you an accurate picture of who Jesus was.
Okay.
Now, is that a problem? Or can you accept that as historically accurate?
I don't have enough time to check the credibility, but I'm sure they're pretty credible from your what you're saying. They sound pretty credible. So.
How long were they written after the disciples were with Jesus?
Yeah.
Great question. The Gospels were written. The Gospels were written within 20 to 60 years after Christ, which means they were written by eyewitnesses or by those who knew eyewitnesses of Christ. I don't think it's wise of you to trust me.
Well, yeah, I don't have any direction, so I'm trying to find which way to go.
Okay, I'll thank you for your honesty. I appreciate it and respect that. All right, now just let me share with you how I did it.
Okay.
And nothing sacred about the way I did it, but I would plead with you, you got to come up with your own tests that you use to determine whether a document, any document, is historically reliable or not. You got a history department right there, right? You guys got to pay money to take history courses, so obviously you respect it as a branch of knowledge. Okay, here are my 4 tests that I use on Suetonius, Tacitus, Homer, the Gospels, the Quran, the history of Siddhartha Gautama Buddha, American history, African history, South American history, Chinese history. It's the following 4 tests. What is the literary style of the document? And you see, what's fascinating is some of you guys don't have the foggiest idea what I'm just said, but you do it. Unconsciously, you do what I just said. What I just said is respect literary style. And some of you are thinking, what? What's that? When you go to biology class, do you read a biology textbook the same way you read the plays of William Shakespeare? Good. That's an example of respecting literary style. You know that science textbook, scientific writing, is not the same as a play by William Shakespeare. Do you read a play of William Shakespeare the same way you would read a poem? Nope. Do you read a poem the same way you would read a math textbook? Nope. Okay, that's what that is. You're respecting literary style. So, you obviously have to learn what is the literary style of historical narrative. Historical narrative is concerned with such questions as, at what time did this take place? At what place did this take place? And who were the people around to witness this event take place? That's historical narrative. Second test, internal consistency. At 2:24, Thursday, November 1st, Cliffe was in San Marcos, Texas. Later on in the document, at 2:24 on November 1st, Cliffe was in Calcutta, India.
Yeah.
Contradiction. The author's mixed up. Read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. You will see there's no contradictions. Are there different perspectives? Yes. Tonight, I'm going to call my wife up in Connecticut. I'm going to say, I talked to a very respectful man, a very intelligent man, who had a Texas State shirt on. Later on in the conversation, I'm going to say, I spoke to over 50 people. Is that a contradiction? No.
If you would have said it the same instance, then it would have been a contradiction.
Well, not even so. Because when I was talking with you, 50 people were listening, right?
Yes.
See, so it's perspective.
Yeah.
Okay? So we got to keep that one clear in your head when it comes to contradiction.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first test is literary style. The second test is internal consistency. The third test is archaeology. What does that mean? On November 1st, 2012, Cliffe spoke to students on the island of Atlantis. What? Where is the island of Atlantis? It's fictitious, right? So, was Jesus born on the island of Atlantis? No. He was born in Bethlehem, grew up in Nazareth, went to Jerusalem, floated a boat, not on the Sea of Orpheus, no, on the Sea of Galilee. Archaeologically verifiable places. Okay, that's a third test to determine whether a historical document is reliable. Here's the fourth test. Now catch this one, because some of you guys have already raised this week, and I'm glad you did, which is, come on, man, you ever played a game telephone? You sit in a circle, whisper a secret in the ear of the person next to them, they whisper it in the ear of the person next to them, and by the time that secret reaches the end of the circle, it's totally changed.
I was going to raise that point.
Good. Okay, that's important, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay? So that's the fourth test. Manuscript evidence, which is great what this guy raised who just left.
Okay.
How big is the gap between Jesus living and the written records? Very important question. It used to be taught on every state university campus in the United States, in the religion department, that the Gospels were not written for 200, 300, 400 years after Christ.
Yeah.
But what happened was, we have discovered so many Greek early manuscripts that we know that that's false. The Gospels were not written 200, 300, 400 years after Christ. They were all written between 20 and 60 years after Christ. How do we know that? Well, we got a fragment of the Gospel of John, dated between 115 and 130 AD in the John Rylands Museum in Manchester, England. So you see, that one manuscript find smashed that whole school of thought that taught the Gospels weren't written for a few hundred years. Then we discovered the writings of the early church fathers, like Ignatius, Bishop of Antioch, who in 95 AD writes letters, and in these letters he quotes Matthew, Mark, Luke. In other words, at 95 AD, those letters were obviously already written because he's quoting him in his letters. See, that's why we know that those Gospels were written in the first century. Now, the Gospels that we have in English today, sir, are based on over 5,200 Greek manuscripts or pieces of manuscript. That is why we have such a high degree of certainty that we really have what those eyewitnesses wrote. The Iliad comes closest to it, and the Iliad has something like 600 manuscripts.
Yeah.
But for the New Testament, over 5,000. So if anybody gives you the old telephone stuff, they just don't know what they're talking about. We don't have the New Testament by telephone from the French and Spanish versions. We have the Greek manuscripts, over 5,000, all agreeing to an infinitesimal degree. So we really have what those guys wrote. You owe it to yourself, as a thinking human being, read the Gospel simply as history, forget about it being the Word of God, you don't know that, and ask yourself, does the historical evidence of the way Jesus lived, taught, died, and rose from the dead point to him being a fraud? If it does, reject him. Or does it point to him being the truth? If it does, embrace him. Put your faith in it.
I just have one more short question.
Yeah, go ahead.
The other conflict I have is I realized a lot of theism, not necessarily, but most of the time, it always is accompanied by afterlife. And the thing I don't understand with that is most humans are scared of 2,400 because they will not be alive.
Right.
And my interpretation is consciousness wants to maintain itself, and the idea of not existing kind of just defeats the purpose. So I always tell my friends, were you scared of 1876 when you didn't exist? And then they'll say no. And then I'll say, why would you be scared of 2,400? You won't exist. You don't remember it. You're not aware of it. And no one's ever been able to really retort to that.
You bet.
So I've had one person say it's after God builds a relationship with you. But I really haven't found anything that's been solid that kind of made me question it. So.
Okay, good. Okay, the reason that I'm not concerned about Cliffe in 1876 is because I was not alive then. So you're right, that doesn't matter to me. But since May 20th, 1954, when I was born, sorry to give you an idea of how old I am. Since then, I have been keenly concerned about Cliffe's life. Now, often people say, well, that's just selfishness on your part, Cliffe, that you're concerned about your life. No, it is not selfishness. It's an affirmation of the value of my life. Now, if you get really sick, you're going to go to the best doctor you can. Not because you're selfish, but because you affirm the value of your life. Why are you and I not going to go out and play out on traffic on I-35? It's not because we're selfish.
Yeah.
It's because we don't want to end up on the bumper of a car or a truck because we affirm the value of our life. Our life is good. We don't want to end it by getting crushed by a truck or a car. Okay, why am I interested in you living life after death? Why am I interested in living life after death? Not because I'm selfish, but I celebrate life. I affirm the value of your life and my life. And therefore, if there is life after death, I'm keenly interested in it. If there's no life after death, fine, we got to face the fact there's no life after death. But because I affirm life, I want to get you to the best doctor possible if you get really sick. And because I affirm the value of your life, I also am keenly interested in you living for eternity in heaven. And to tell you the truth, sir, that's what motivates me partially to be out here to talk.
Yeah.
Because I affirm life. I think you guys are great. I want you to experience eternal life. I'm convinced that Jesus Christ died on a cross for our sins, which leads to death, but he rose from the dead. That's why I trust that him talking about life after death is not just him doing this and blowing smoke. He's speaking the truth. That's why putting our faith in Christ is so important.
Because my mind is, I'm not going to blindly have faith in something unless I can see the evidence that it's there.
Good. You said before I accept anything, I need evidence. Okay, I'm tracking with you. I'm just the same way you are, okay? Before I believe anything, I need evidence. But now, the question becomes, how much evidence, what kind of evidence do you need in order to believe that God exists?
I would need scientific evidence, and how much of it is really dependent on each individual person.
Okay.
I mean, you can't measure, like, for me it could be, I'm just going to use a number like, I need 100% evidence. For someone else it could be they need 80% evidence.
Okay, the reason I asked that question, Justin, is because I have no scientific evidence that love is real. It's an unseen, intangible value.
It's chemical reactions firing in our brain.
Okay, good. Then if I love you, it means I have to love you because there are chemical reactions firing in my brain, and so I have to love you. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, but my experience contradicts that, Justin. My experience is I don't have to love you. I could hate you,
Exactly.
or I could just blow you off, be apathetic.
Yeah, it's emotions. And those are chemical reactions in our brain. They know, like, they've done research to say what chemicals control what emotions and what part of the brain.
Okay? I would insist my love for you is not an emotion. Why? Because I define love the same way Jesus did, which means to make a decision of the will to pray for your well-being, to wish your well-being, and to do things that promote your well-being. You see, when Jesus says, love your enemy, he's not saying, have good feelings for your enemy. To be honest with you, Justin, I don't have good feelings towards my enemy. But I obey Jesus and love my enemy by actively wishing their well-being. So you see, love, I would argue, is not just an emotion. Yes, there's an emotion we call love, but when Christ says to love, he's not talking about having all these positive feelings. Because guess what? I can't command my feelings. And if someone has hurt me deeply enough, I don't have a lot of positive feelings towards them. But I can love them, which means I can pray for their success, I can wish their success, and I can work for their success.
So our definitions of love are different.
Exactly. So I think we gotta be real careful there.
Why isn't this God providing for people in poverty? That's my big thing. Like, there's so much suffering going on in this world. Why would you want to worship a God who is allowing that to happen?
Okay.
I mean, if he did all the things like the Bible said, what is keeping him from doing them now?
Okay, good question. The only reason that suffering is really bad is because you know what really good is. In other words, evil is real. It's an objective value. And good is real. It's an objective value. It's not just relative, it's not subjective, and that's why I like what you're protesting. You're protesting, come on, Cliff, how can God exist in light of all the evil and suffering in the world? But you see, if there is no God, Justin, there is no evil. There is no good, other than a subjective prejudice, a taste, a bias, an opinion. You see, the reason that evil is wrong is because it's objectively wrong, and the reason that good is because it's objectively good. It's not just subjective, depending on my opinion. It's objective, which means it's independent of you and me. You're absolutely right, sir. Suffering is wrong. Starvation is wrong. Evil is wrong. Objectively, not just subjectively. And the only reason that's true is because there's a God who has created and defined a value of goodness and justice and compassion. And those are real. They're not just a biochemical reaction.
Then why would he make evil?
Okay.
If it's all part of his plan, why would he include suffering and everything in his plan? And
Good
you say
question.
if there's free will, which I'm pretty sure is what you're going to go towards,
Yes.
then why create a divine plan then if you're going to give us free will? But if there is a divine plan and he knew ahead of time what we were going to do, then that's not really free will either.
Okay, good questions. Let's say you've been dating her for the past 2 months. Let's say that every week she's said to you, I love you. Then tonight your dad calls you up and says, Justin, I've been paying her $1,000 a week to love you. How would you feel?
I would feel creeped out that she said it within the first 2 months.
Good. You'd be bummed out, wouldn't you? You'd be bummed out because you'd realize her love was not a free decision. Her love was paid for by my dad. See, in order to be real, love has to be free. If it's paid for, if it's coerced or forced, it's not real. It's not really love. Right?
Well, I just said you could pay me to go around preaching that God is real, and I don't believe in it. It's the same thing.
Good point. If I'm out here simply to make money, how sad, how tragic. I hope you would have a problem with that.
I would have a huge problem with that.
Good. But remember, if everything's relative, if everything's subjective, it really doesn't matter whether I'm out here because people are paying me lots of money. Because it's all just a matter of opinion.
It does matter because we need to progress as a human race. And if you were out here just doing that and you didn't believe in what you were saying and you were just doing it for greed, you're hindering the progression of the human race.
I'm not hindering anybody. I'm making money for my family and myself. So if I'm out here motivated by a bunch of people paying me millions of dollars, come on, you know very well that that's good for me because I'm getting a lot of money. Something wrong with that? Yes, there is your point, and I agree with you, Justin. Why? Because if my motive out here is to communicate Christ and God, and it's not motivated by love for you, instead it's motivated by the fact that someone's paying me a lot of money, how trite and superficial is that? You see, Justin, what you and I are beginning to see is motives do matter, goodness is not relative, and if I stand here saying, well, it's just fine, the reason I tell you about Christ is because someone's paying me millions of dollars to do it. It's kind of sad, isn't it? You see, objective good is real, Justin, isn't it? And you would not accept me standing here talking to you about Christ if the truth was that someone's paying me millions of dollars to do it.
Okay, but how does this relate to the question I asked about the divine plan and why suffering's allowed? It seems like you're skirting around that.
Okay, here's why I'm not skirting around it. Because if there is no God, suffering happens.
But if there is a God, why would he allow that? That's my question.
Okay, right. But you see, what you've got to acknowledge first is the very fact that you're so indignant about suffering points you to God's existence. Sure it does. It's very simple. See, and this is what you got to grasp. And we got to, I'll try so long and then I'll go on. But if there is no God, objective morality does not exist. Why? Because if there is no God, there's no mind prior to the human mind that defines right and wrong. In other words, who defines right and wrong? The human mind. Exactly, we do, if there is no God. So you might say it's naughty for you, Cliff, to preach Christ out here, motivated by someone paying you millions of dollars. But that's just your opinion. My opinion is it's a great way to provide for my family and me. You might say that date rape is wrong. But if I say I have a very high testosterone level and I've got a raper, then I'm right for myself. You see the relativism?
No, because that causes harm to someone else.
So what? According to you. According to me, it brings me a great deal of pleasure, so therefore date rape is fine. Because it's all relative.
We have a collective sense of morals.
Great, collective, right?
They're ever changing.
Yeah.
Which is why a lot of the things in the Bible we no longer practice today because our morals are ever changing depending on society's values. I can't find someone out here who's a virgin and rape her and pay her dad 50 silver and have her be my wife anymore. That's not acceptable.
That's not the issue right now. We're not talking about the Bible. The Bible's not part of our discussion right now. The discussion is suffering is evil. Really? What do you mean evil? Well, from your perspective, it might be evil. From my perspective, it might be good. And if you're going to be consistent with your worldview, you're going to have to say, Cliff, you're right. From your perspective, it's right. From my perspective, it's wrong. But what is right and wrong? It's totally relative, totally subjective, just a taste. Like, do you prefer beans or broccoli? Do you prefer Coke or Pepsi? It's a taste. And so do you prefer date rape or not date rape? It's a taste. Do you prefer abusing innocent children or not? Just a taste.
But with one of those, you're causing harm to another human being. With Coke and Pepsi,
So what?
I can recognize that's a preference.
So what if you're causing
what?
harm to an accidental collection of atoms? You step on grass and kill grass, so why not step on a human being and kill a human being? Why not?
Because it's in our nature to progress as a species.
Great, Justin, that's wonderful. Maybe it's in your nature, it's in my nature to step on people. Are you going to tell me I'm wrong?
Based off society's values, yeah.
Oh, really? What happens if you live in Nazi society? What happens if you live in white South African society? What if you live in the time of the Dred Scott decision in the United States? What do you do then, Justin?
Those are those society's values. Like I said, they're ever changing.
Fine. Then morality's relative. It changes based on society changing. Which means, if society says that black folks are 3/5 the value of white folks, then that's true. Baloney, Justin, you know better than that. You know that even if society says black people are inferior to white people, that society is wrong. That's what Dr. Martin Luther King understood. Just because society says something doesn't make it right. That's what Gandhi understood. Just because my society says that the caste system is right doesn't make it right.
And a lot of times, religion is to blame for those.
No, now that's a different issue, Justin. Come on, don't get out of the kitchen. Stay in the kitchen.
I'm right at the stove.
No, you're not at the stove. Now, when you talk about then religion,
I'm starting to
we're talking about a philosophical issue that has nothing to do with Jesus Christ or the Bible.
I said religion. I didn't say Jesus Christ.
It has everything to do with, is there a God or is there no God? If there's no God, Justin, then you define right and wrong, the culture defines right and wrong, the power elite define right and wrong. And right and wrong are totally relative depending upon the individual, depending upon the culture, or depending upon the people in power. King Arthur and his knights, or Adolf Hitler and his henchmen.
Exactly, that's what I said.
Okay, then why are you so upset as if it's an objective moral that suffering exists? Just realize that's your own bias. It's just your opinion. But you can't live that way, Justin, and I'm glad you can't live that way. You live your life as if evil and suffering are real and they're really wrong. Well, the only way that can be true is if there is some type of God to create and define justice, good versus evil, as objective values.
Why is he not stopping it? That's what I've been asking you the whole time.
That's the next question. We'll get to that, I promise. But do you see the first point now or not?
I see your point of view of it.
Okay, then don't take it from me. Read Friedrich Nietzsche, Albert Camus, Jean-Paul Sartre, the great French and German atheistic existentialist and nihilist philosophers. It's crystal clear.
Like 600 years before Jesus Christ,
Yes.
Mithras was also born December 25th, was also born to Virgin Mary, and was also resurrected on the third day, and was also crucified. And same as the god of Horus was also born December 25th, resurrected the third day, was crucified, the same thing. And like I feel like Jesus Christ is the same thing as like a Martin Luther King or a Gandhi. He died for, with civil disobedience. And I feel like it's the same thing. If someone were to write about Gandhi, it would have the same outlook as Jesus Christ. Like, what if he was just like another person that was, for the greater good of humankind? Like greater good, more greater good than what religion does to the world itself now.
It's fascinating you raised that question, because yesterday I studied Mithraism, Osiris, and Horus. All right, great question. First point, Jesus was not born on December 25th. December 25th is simply a holiday that has been attached to the birth of Christ. So Christ was not born on December 25th, that's just a tradition.
I was born of a virgin too, I just don't like to brag about it.
What was the significance of Mithra? The significance of his life was he killed a bull. That's the whole focus of Mithraism. Mithra killed the bull. Sir, the idea that Mithra was crucified, the idea that Mithra rose from the dead, those thoughts occurred way AD. Hundreds of years after Christ.
So was the New Testament.
Pardon?
So was the New Testament.
No, the New Testament was written in the 1st century. You know how we know that?
AD?
Yeah,
AD
1st century AD, after the birth of Christ.
Right.
The
So
Gospels
stories passed on from other people that saw Jesus and that people. It's like playing the game telephone. By the end of the time, you're gonna have a whole different story than what you started with.
Okay? The Gospel of Mark, Matthew, Luke, and John were written by the eyewitnesses or those who knew the eyewitnesses in the first century. The way that we know that is Ignatius, Bishop of Antioch, in letters he writes in 95 AD, quotes the Gospels. Clement, Bishop of Rome, writing in 115 AD, quotes the Gospels. 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verses 3 through 8, the Apostle Paul writes, "What I received, I passed on to you as of first importance, that Christ died for our sins according to the Scriptures, that he was buried, that he was raised from the dead, according to the Scriptures." When did Paul write 1 Corinthians 15? Between 50 and 54 AD. Sir, that's within 25 years of the death and resurrection of Christ. So whoever told you that the Gospels were written hundreds of years after Christ, I'm sorry, they're inaccurate. They're wrong. We have a fragment of the Gospel of John today in the John Rylands Museum in Manchester, England. It's verses from John chapter 18, and it's dated between 117 and 130 AD. So, sir, it's obvious that the Gospels were written in the first century by the eyewitnesses or by those who knew the eyewitnesses. Now, the resurrection of Osiris is the only resurrection that is in BC, that predates the resurrection of Christ. So now you've got to study the resurrection of Osiris. And when you study it, sir, what you'll find out is he was sliced up into 14 different pieces. He was killed. Then what happened? His sister Isis went around finding his parts. She found 13 of the 14 parts. So she puts the 13 parts back together again. And what does Osiris experience? He does not experience a resurrection body the way Jesus Christ physically rose from the dead. Instead, Osiris becomes the god of the underworld, a spiritual existence. So you do not, sir, have a physical resurrection. You have a spiritual resurrection of Osiris, where you've got 13 of his 14 parts in a spirit form in the underworld.
It doesn't ever say that there's any kind of correlation between him and the underworld, just in a spiritual kind of realm. And although he had his 13 pieces put together, the 13th piece was made from a spiritual kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering where you're getting that Osiris was in the realm of the underworld.
I studied it yesterday, sir. That's how I get it. It's very clear.
I'll go to the library.
Just check out Osiris. Good. Check out Osiris. He's put together again by his sister Isis, and he rules in the underworld, in a spiritual realm of the underworld.
Just because you're in a spiritual realm doesn't mean that it's an underworld.
All right, fine. If you have a problem with underworld, fine. He's in a spiritual realm.
So what's not to say that he was in the spiritual realm of the heavens?
Well, it definitely doesn't say that, but if you want to add that, go ahead. But what it does say is that he was not a physical being. The resurrection of Christ is not a spiritual resurrection, guys. In Luke chapter 24, when Jesus appears to his disciples, they think, oh no, we're hallucinating. This is a spirit. And what does Jesus do? He comes right up to him and says, grab hold of me and see. A spirit does not have flesh and bone the way you see I have. What does he do to Thomas? He doesn't say, hey Thomas, here I am, the ghost. No. He says, right here, Thomas, take your hands and put them in the nail prints in my hands, and Thomas stopped doubting and believed. So obviously, the clear claim of the Gospels is Jesus physically died on a cross. 3 days later, he physically rose from the dead, and over a period of 40 days, he appears to over 500 people who see him risen from the dead. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, what my guess or understanding on that is where that information would come from other people's interpretations. So I'm not doubting that when the people were writing about this, that they didn't know what's going on, but they are writing their interpretations of what happened. And you're talking about that even some of the people just knew the eyewitnesses. Well, just knowing the eyewitness is not a direct link to the kind of information that's there. They're only giving their personal interpretation, and if we were looking under God's eyes, personal interpretations can be wrong.
I agree. Good point. So, if I say to you,
Well, it's all based on deception.
I'm an atheist, is it fair for you to interpret me to be saying, I believe that God exists? Is that a good interpretation? Either the miracle happened and the virgin had a baby, or the miracle didn't happen and Mary had sex with someone and that's how Jesus was born. It's not a matter of interpretation. It's a matter of, did the miracle occur or did it not?
Okay, so how are we supposed to know today if the miracle did or did not occur?
Very simple.
By looking at other people's interpretations?
No. First of all, you ask yourself, does my worldview allow for a miracle to happen?
Yes.
Yours does? So that means you believe in some type of God or gods, right?
I believe in a higher power. That doesn't mean that they're a god.
Okay. But you believe there's more to reality than matter and energy.
No, I believe that the reality is energy.
Okay, well if all of reality is matter and energy, how can a miracle happen?
Because energy can be manipulated in the ways that we might not understand right now.
Who's going to manipulate it?
The conscious being.
Okay. So what you're telling me is you think that a woman who hasn't had sex with a man can consciously manipulate her body so she can have a child?
No.
Good, I'm glad to hear that. Because I would say that's irrational. Sir, the only way it's possible for a virgin to have a baby is if there was a supernatural God who created the laws of nature. Therefore, he is capable of changing a law of nature and performing what you and I call a miracle, a virgin having a baby. That's the only way it can happen. If there is no God, it's impossible for a virgin to have a baby. And if you don't believe me, just go to biology.
Just because something is not being able to be explained today doesn't mean that it can't be explained in the past. Just like in the past, we look at the sky and we're like, why is that blue? Why are there stars? We didn't understand, so we'd make up explanations for that. And now as science evolves, we're able to tell what we weren't able to tell back then. So just by saying that, well, today we don't know that, that it's impossible that a woman could get pregnant without actually, sperm entering the egg. Well, just because you can't explain that today doesn't mean that we're not going to be able to explain it scientifically in the future.
If there is no supernatural God, guys, virgins never have babies. And if you haven't learned that yet in biology class, that's embarrassing, okay? So, the only way a virgin can have a baby is if there's a supernatural God who changes a law of nature and performs what you and I call a miracle. Philosophically, if you say there is no God, it's impossible for a miracle to happen, because if there is no God, all of reality is matter and energy. And matter and energy operate in a very consistent way. We call it the laws of nature.
That's not true.
The laws of science.
Quantum mechanics.
Thank you.
Quantum mechanics.
We're starting to show that the atom is all empty space. So we can look around and wonder how this matter is made up around us. It's all empty. Everything that we see is just a projection from within our own mind.
Within the last year or two.
Wait. Say that last sentence again.
Everything that we see is a projection of what's happening within our own mind, our own conscious, and all of the conscious together. That's what God is. God is not someone off up in the sky that's preaching down, looking down, and be like, you sin, electrical, you're going to hell. No, God is a collective consciousness of everyone. I'm God, you're God, everyone here is God.
Okay, now if what you say is right, that I cannot perceive reality, I just make up reality in my head with my perception.
It doesn't mean you make it up, but you are able to interpret the reality differently than how you might interpret it right now. It doesn't mean that it's just, made up. It's how you perceive things.
Really? Well, then where does your rational mind come from?
My rational mind comes from my consciousness.
What does that mean?
My consciousness is basically how, from birth, my life perceives all of the information around it. I'm sure you know of the Trinity, body, mind, and spirit. When we're born, we are born with the spirit, the new mind, and a new body. So we have the collective consciousness, which is the spirit, which is in all of us. The body is the physical way that we experience the reality, and the mind is the mind that interprets it, the actual consciousness.
What is spirit?
Spirit is what a lot of people like to refer to as God. Spirit is the kind of consciousness that everyone has and is able to basically use. And what can happen is when all the collective consciousness comes together with the same intent, that is when a miracle is able to happen, because there's such a strong force behind it, the unseen force that has a lot to do with quantum physics, that unexplainable things start to happen. And just because we're not to explain it now doesn't mean that we can't explain it into the future when we start learning about new things, the quantum mechanics, the way that consciousness really works.
What is spirit? Where does spirit come from?
Spirit started from the great beginning. A lot of people like to call it the Big Bang, everything like that. There was one consciousness. You might refer to him as God. A lot of people refer to him as a lot of different things. And as that happens, God, consciousness, wants to experience life in as many ways as it can. So it might send consciousness as this guy right here. Intelligent, smart guy, he's experiencing consciousness in his own way. And then he might want to send it to some other person in India who grows up in some kind of temple, Buddhist temple, whatever. And he's experiencing his consciousness in a different way. So it is all of the same consciousness, experiencing it in different realms.
Does this stone have consciousness?
That is an extremely good question, and that's something that we're trying to figure out right now, is if inanimate things are able to have a consciousness. I'll tell you what the stone does have, is it all resonates on the same frequency that I do. You're bringing up energy and matter. Well, quantum physics is starting to show that everything is not as solid as we thought. It's more like a light wave, and it's a condensed light wave that is able to just manifest into something that's actually hard. So what we're trying to figure out now is, in what difference is my body have to this rock, because they're made of the same elements, the same energy, the same matter. That is where the Buddhists get the idea that the observer, seeing, and the phenomenon are one and the same. They're not actually separate, because we are all made of the same building blocks, the same unit that our reality is constructed of.
Sir, there was a Big Bang, right? About 15 billion years ago?
What are you saying?
There was a Big Bang about 15 billion years ago?
How the universe started, I don't know. But
do you accept the Big Bang theory or not?
I contemplate it. Aristotle once said that it's a mark of an educated mind to be able to contemplate an idea without accepting it.
Okay. So you don't accept the Big Bang, you just contemplate it.
Right.
Okay. Now, if your worldview is right, that consciousness is this vague thing, and that maybe this rock has consciousness.
It might be.
It might. Then why do you step on the rock and don't step on him? If the rock has consciousness and he has consciousness, why do you step on the rock and not step on him?
Just because I'm stepping on ground doesn't mean that I'm inflicting any kind of pain or hate to it.
What's the difference between me taking a machete, cutting a head of lettuce, cutting a cow's head, or cutting his head? Is there a difference?
Yes, there absolutely is a difference.
What's the basis?
Because plants are a way that everything in this life receives nutrition. There is not a single way to deny that. Everything comes from plants. And just because you're using a plant doesn't mean that you're even, again, hurting it, inflicting any kind of pain, because you're cycling through what is known as life. I would never hurt another human being because we're of the same species. You don't see lettuce going around chopping each other down. There's one universal force in the world, and it's consciousness. And if you ask me, consciousness is the same thing as love.
Okay,
All
very good.
Is love.
That's where you and I disagree. If what you say is true, nobody has innate value. They just have subjective value that we choose to subjectively give ourselves.
That would not be true. As where the question comes in, asking is, where does consciousness comes in? Is because I have the spirit. Spirit, everyone has a spirit. I wouldn't want to go to another person who's also experiencing reality through their body, mind, and then, of course, the collective spirit. I would never want to end their experience of reality, because that would ultimately break them of their connection between their body and mind and spirit. And now I'm done.
Okay. The only way there can be more to reality than matter and energy, the only way there can be a spirit, logically, is if there is some type of God to create the spirit. Because if there's no God, then all of reality is matter and energy evolved to a higher order. The way you simply blindly, gullibly say, oh, there is spirit, you don't know that. If you philosophically say, my starting point is matter and energy, you can't just add spirit to that. But if there's a God who creates matter and energy and also creates spirit, then it's possible that spirit exists. The only way there can be more to reality than matter and energy is if there is some type of God to create spirit, to create a value of justice, to create a value of love, to create a value of kindness. You cannot put spirit into a mathematical equation. You cannot put love into a test tube. You cannot give me a foot of justice. Those are intangible, non-material values. The only way those values can be real is if there's more to reality than simple matter and energy. That's my point.
Do you mind if I?
Please, you got the floor.
You are saying that is the only way that it's able. The only way that there could be a spirit is if there was a God. Okay, well then, where would you get your justification for that?
Because when you say there is no God, you're automatically limiting reality to obviously matter and energy.
No. You are limiting yourself if you say there is a God, and now I have to devote my life praising this one person. It limits the true abilities and capabilities that the human is able to achieve.
I agree with you. I've never said that, what you just said.
Okay.
I've never said that once. Instead, we're having a philosophical discussion right now about reality. Is reality just matter and energy, or is there a spirit? Are there values like justice and love and compassion that are non-physical, non-material values? My point is, if those values are real, justice, love, spirit, then there's got to be more to reality than just matter and energy. There's got to be some type of God to create and define spirit,
Why?
justice. I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Good question. Because inanimate matter and energy have no ability to define or experience love, justice, kindness, compassion, or rational thinking. It takes a rational mind to think rationally. It takes a conscience of a human being to just say, that is just, that is unjust, and to understand that. The leaf, the tree, the rock has no ability to appreciate justice, compassion, rational thinking, or free will.
That's not true.
Okay, fine.
If justice was real, I would not be able to cut off his head, like you're saying earlier, without being smitten down on the ground. The only right that exists that humans have is the right of power. The only reason no one chops off anyone's head or takes stuff all the time is because there's a threat of the government going to jail or that other person killing you. That's why in the past, people did it all the time, because the strongest person was able to be king, or the strongest person had the most men following him, and you were able to do whatever you want because it was within your power and no one could stop you. Nowadays, it's more modern because we have government and whatever, and none of these people can chop off each other's heads to shoot each other because there's a real threat. The only right that is inherent in the universe is the right of power and control. There is no inherent justice. If I was the strongest person in the world, or if I was able to do whatever, I could kill thousands and thousands of people and nothing would happen.
Exactly. It is an honor to meet you. Thank you for your consistent thinking.
The logical
Now,
right there.
You've been very logical, and I love your logical thinking. That's why Mao said, morality comes out of the barrel of a gun. He understood what you said. He understood right and wrong are determined by the powerful. So who's got the power? They define right and wrong, and their definition wins. Now, I am radically different. I am convinced that even if I had 10 guys with machine guns behind me, and I said, okay, guys, start machine gunning them to death, and that is just. That is loving. I am convinced that although I have the power to impose my definition of justice and love by saying machine gun these people to death, I would be wrong. Because I am convinced that justice is a real value, objective, independent of my opinion, independent of Mao's opinion, independent of the powerful people's opinion. And I don't care if Nazi Germany would have won World War II and would have wiped out all Jews. I am convinced that the slaughter of Jews is absolutely evil. I don't care how much power Adolf Hitler has, or Mao. You see, why do I say that? Because my experience of life is a sensual experience. I watch gravity pull a person down from the top of the building, but I also have moral experience. And I observe objective morality through my experience.
Such as?
Such as, when you stole my backpack, you should not have done that. That was really wrong. When you told that racist joke, that was degrading of a person. Really objectively wrong. Not wrong because I'm a liberal, white, enlightened guy, but because all human beings have equal value and dignity because they're created in the image of God, and my conscience informs me that your racist joke is very demeaning of another human being.
First of all, not all people are created equal. That is, really, that would be nice if people were created equal. But it's not true. There are people who are born retarded and they die when they're a year old. They're not equal to me, in physically or mentally or whatever. You can say spiritually because we can't, that's not measurable. It's kind of made up, and you know, there are different feelings towards it, but it's not real. There are people who run faster than other people. There are people who I will never be as smart as. There are people who are better than other people. There are people who are less moral, or they do more evil things, or they're less rational, or they're insane. People are not created equal. I'm sorry, that's not how the world is.
Okay, all I can say is it's an honor talking with you because you are intellectually consistent. You're absolutely correct. If there is no God, all people are not created equal. If there is no God, it's the rich, powerful people who are more valuable than the weak, poor people, or it's the intelligent people who are more valuable than the dumb people. You're absolutely right. But if there is a God who has given us the gift of human life, and he's given us innate value, then I don't care how uncoordinated you are, I don't care how fat and ugly you are, I don't care how low your IQ is. You're still a human being created in the image of God, which means your value has nothing to do with your GPA. It has nothing to do with you being white or black or Hispanic or Asian. It has to do with God's creating you with that value. You see the radical difference in the worldviews here?
I understand.
Well, I like the way you are so
Okay.
consistent in your thinking. That's refreshing, so thank you.
Okay, so you say man is created in the image of God.
Yes.
I don't remember who said it. I think it was Aristotle. But he said if the horses could paint, surely they would paint the image of horses as gods or something. Why would God be like us? We suck. Like, people are horribly inefficient. We don't do very many things well. We eat and breathe through the same hole in our body. We can be eating and it gets stuck and we die. Why aren't we like dolphins? Why can't we breathe and eat through different holes? That's dumb. Why would he look like us? And you know, it's funny, if you go to paintings in Africa, God, what they paint as God, he's black. And if you go in Asia, he's Asian. And a European, he looks like a white guy with a beard.
Yeah.
So why would we be in his image? Why?
You make great points, sir. You're right. Now, the Bible says that God isn't a white man. God isn't a black man. God isn't an Asian woman or an Hispanic woman. God is spirit, which means God doesn't have a body. So you're right, sir. If anybody draws God as a white man, they're wrong, which means Michelangelo, ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. Big God with a big beard, barrel chest, big arms, white man, that's God. No, that ain't God. God doesn't have a body. So what does the Bible mean when it says that he created us in his image? It means rational thinking and creativity.
Why would they not say that he created us in his spirit? Or maybe not use the word image? Because that's pretty clear. When you say image, but
So,
I think it would be
what does it mean to be created in the likeness of God? It does not mean to be a white person or a black person or Hispanic or Asian. It means God, who is a spiritual being, created us with a mind, creativity. God's the creator, and he gave us incredible gifts of creativity. It means God, who is love, has given us the ability to genuinely love. It means that God, who is just, has given us a conscience, and we can distinguish between right and wrong, good and evil. That's what the Bible means when it says we're created in the likeness or the image of God.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. So if he created us in his image, the universe is really, 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 really big, right?
You bet.
Really huge.
And really
It's
old
massive.
also.
It's very, very big. And the chance that other intelligent life does not exist is also really, really, really small. And I'm not saying God doesn't exist, because maybe he does. And we obviously haven't found alien life yet, okay? But I'm going to make a little comparison here. So chimps are the closest thing related to us in DNA, right? They're 1% different than us. And the smartest chimp can do some sign language, okay? We have 3-year-olds who can do sign language. And that difference comes from the difference in 1% in DNA. That is the difference in chimps and people, right? Okay, so say there's an alien race anywhere, doesn't matter where. And the chance that they exist is really, really high, because there's just too many, it's too big for it to not happen.
Yeah.
Now imagine that they're 2% in the same direction that we are from the chimps, away from us in DNA.
Yeah.
Our greatest accomplishments, like a chimp's greatest accomplishment learning sign language, would be absolutely nothing. Their toddlers of that alien race could also do that, and they would be vastly superior to us in just about every way that you could think of that's measurable. But Why wouldn't the universe be created for them? They're better than us if they exist out there, which they probably do. Why would he only create the universe for us in his image? That makes no sense.
The Bible never says that God created the universe for us. Never says that, so you don't have to worry. And if there's alien life out there, no problem. Bible never answers the question, is there alien life or not?
Okay.
It's totally silent, so there's no contradiction between us discovering aliens and the Bible. No contradiction at all.
But how come it's us,
That's the
though?
same thinking for dinosaurs. The Bible never says dinosaurs never existed, so if the evidence is dinosaurs existed, that doesn't contradict the Bible.
Do you not feel a sense of loneliness or importance in the universe that maybe...
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
That is one of the things that has driven me to Christ.
Yeah, and-
You're absolutely right.
Yeah,
There's a sense of loneliness. The question is there a God out there who gives a rip about me? And Jesus Christ says yes. And he actually loves you. And he's drawing you to himself. G.K. Chesterton put it beautifully when he wrote, "The man who knocks on the door of a brothel is really looking for God." God has hardwired us in such a way that we long for intimacy. We long for relationship. And the amazing message of Jesus Christ is God desires you and me to live in relationship with him.